Hi, this is Steve. As some of you will know, I'm in the early stages of studying cognitive science and, in particular, wisdom and foolishness in the technical cognitive science sense. One of the exercises is to look at a complex issue from a perspective other than the one you actually hold or would naturally gravitate toward, and also to just think or write or speak out loud without checking or self-censoring too much. So I've just plucked an issue out of the air that we all think we know about and would like your feedback. I've called it NHS Resources. Don't judge other people. As with so many sound bites, it's true sometimes and not true other times. Do we not judge rapists or murderers? Of course we do. And let's be honest here, in our heads we make judgments about other people many times every day. So we absolutely can and do judge other people. But where do we draw the line on taking action over those judgments? And who decides? That each case should be treated on its merits is obviously true, but that we should never judge or that our bar for judging should be so high that only the likes of rapists and murderers get judged is surely nonsense. An example was given on Twitter recently of not forcing alcoholics to become sober or fat people to take weight off. To force them is tyranny, was stated. I should say that this was a tweet coming from someone living in a country where you buy your own medical care with insurance. And of course, I realise that your own healthcare system will colour your response. Now, we should always try and look at issues from multiple perspectives, as most situations are more complex than some like to think. And so multi-perspectival thinking is more likely to get to a better conclusion, which is wisdom. I simply state that in the UK, where the NHS is paid for out of general taxation, and where the NHS has a waiting list of several million people, and which costs an increasing proportion of our GDP to fund every year, there's a case to be made. I put it no more strongly than that. There's a case to be made for incentivizing people via carrot and or stick if necessary, not to have a lifestyle that vastly increases the likelihood of them becoming ill, and then pretending that they've done nothing wrong and that they are just as deserving of the scarce NHS resources they take up as someone who is ill through no fault of their own, for example, an inherited genetic disorder. There are some counter-arguments, of course, and I'll go through them, but I don't think they really do. What about contact sports, or driving a car, or crossing the road? Well, on contact sports, or even non-contact sports like freestyle climbing, for example, what's wrong with requiring individuals to have to take out a separate insurance policy just in case of serious injury? Or the sports club or governing body could take out insurance to cover its members. On driving or crossing the road, risk is relative. Cross the road and drive in a sensible, safe manner, and your risk of harm is very, very small. You have control over how you drive and how you cross the road, and are expected to put that control into practice, with legal penalties if you don't when driving. By the way, I should say that if someone else causes an accident by the way they behave, then your injuries are clearly not self-inflicted. Why is how much you eat or how much alcohol you drink any different to driving sensibly or crossing the road sensibly when it affects other people via unnecessary use of scarce resources? Also, there's a difference between taking a risk occasionally and taking a risk permanently. So you only cross the road occasionally and most only drive once or twice a day, which is quantitatively different to always eating too much or always drinking too much alcohol every day, every week, every month, every year. Another objection here is that while making people who self-inflict injury or illness pay extra makes sense in theory, because it would feel unkind, I wouldn't do it. Kindness, by which in practice we usually mean giving or saying or doing whatever the other person wants us to, If kindness is our top priority in every situation, an awful lot of bad or wrong stuff will be allowed to happen as we hide ourselves behind the "at least we were being kind" excuse and camouflage for what is often simply moral and ethical cowardice. Back to the NHS and morbidly obese people. Let's pretend that your morbidly obese neighbour goes to hospital with a serious condition that is directly caused by their weight. The operation costs £10,000 and the ongoing medication costs £1,000 per month for the next 20 or 30 years. If, in addition to your normal tax, you and the others in your street were asked to pay out £20 per month, every month, for those 20 or 30 years to help with that cost. Oh, and ditto for everyone else in your area that had a self-inflicted accident or illness, would you be quite so happy to just shrug and say, so what? What if it was £100 per month, or £500 per month, or £1,000 per month? In other words, are you prepared to pay for the self-inflicted accident or illness costs of others on principle? Or do you let it go simply because it's hidden behind general taxation and therefore not as obvious as the stark example I've just given? And whether we're behaving out of genuine principle or moral cowardice surely matters, doesn't it? Like house insurance, do we pay our taxes towards the NHS in the hope that we don't need it, but just in case? Or do we take the view that it's money wasted unless we create a claim, and so we start a fire in our own home? It's 30 years ago now, but I remember someone openly saying to me, and they saw nothing wrong in it, that they had just claimed a few £100s on their house contents insurance for spoiled food from a broken down freezer when no such thing had happened. They felt that as they'd paid for the insurance for 10 years or more and got nothing from it, they were owed some of that money back by right. In an NHS context, that would be, I've paid my tax and national insurance, and that's what the NHS is for. That I've created my own need for it is irrelevant. My question is simply, is it irrelevant? Really? I understand that it's much easier, both morally and administratively, not to make any effort to distinguish between the self-inflicted and the non-self-inflicted need for scarce medical resources. But is it, in fact, right? Looking forward to the comments. Thanks for listening.